think we're live. I hope we're live, because otherwise Cayla and I are just going to sit here and mouth off for 90 minutes.
I'm just a Zoom. I have no idea what we're doing.
Why are we here? What's happening? What's going on? Welcome everybody to a new episode of Worldbuilder Studio. Woo! Number 4. Woo! Yay, we're here. I'm a little loopy today, so this is going to be, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Cayla. You should be used to this by now. Yeah. Considering what you put up with me otherwise. So I am Halli. I am here with a new guest. We have a new guest every time we do one of these, and I'm very excited because Cayla's here. Woo! Yay! I am super happy to have an artist on here, because I would like you to transfer your secrets to my brain, because I can't draw. I'm deeply jealous of people who can.
It's like ritual magic, and that like you need to put hours and hours and hours into it, and then you might get something out of it. So how many hours you gotta spend?
Yeah, that okay, we'll talk about that, because I just always constantly, like, before we started, she goes, here's some art, pick, and I went, what? Can't do that to me right now. So yeah, there's some, I will always go for the witchy stuff, so we'll talk about who this person is here in the middle of the overlay. Stuff. All the witch stuff, please, just all the stuff.
Well, yeah.
No, I was gonna do the little spiel. So Cayla's links are below her lovely face here. You can see them at the bottom, where you can find all of her things and her stuffs and all of the awesome bits and bobs we're gonna talk about. So thank you all for joining us. Super excited to have Cayla here. So Cayla, who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it? And then we'll go off track in like 10 minutes. So
yeah, fuck if I know, but all right. I'm Cayla. I do many things. But yeah, Halli and I met through DM's Test Kitchen, which is one of the actual plays that I help produce. And so yeah, I play a ton of tabletop. I'm in 2 different podcasts, developing a 3rd one right now. And I love to DM, I love to play, but DMing is my jam because I am a storyteller from just my entire life. It's what I love. And so it's like, that's where the comics come from. That's where so much of the drawing comes from. I write, I make massive stupid worlds for tabletop games that just never stop. So my OneNote is a scary place for most people.
But also the most organized thing you'll ever see in your life.
Well, when you put that much shit in there, you kind of
I've seen it. I've seen inside the vault. I know Cayla's secrets. I don't. It's just magic. It feels like magic.
Well, I'm a business analyst in real life, so I've got to be somewhat organized with my information. So those abilities kind of transfer over a little bit sometimes.
There you go. So, oh gosh, what feels more natural to you? Do you want to? Did it start with stories, or did it start with art? Was the art born out of the stories?
It's very interlocked. So whenever I draw something, the entire time I'm drawing, like it may take you an hour or something, or a couple hours even to draw something, and the entire time I'm doing it, I'm thinking of the story, exactly what's going on. Like, oh, what do they do? Okay, well, like if they are some adventurer, well, they're not going to be wearing a bikini out adventuring. Like, you got to think appropriately about that sort of stuff. I'm realistic in that way, and I know there's a lot of people that think otherwise, but I was like, there's got to be some sort of grounding in logic. There's got to be people have to be able to buy into the fiction. The fiction has to be able to establish itself. So I'm very obsessed with that kind of stuff. So whenever I'm drawing, that's, to me, like, drawing a single image is almost like storyboarding for me. And usually if you look at my sketchbook, there's notes all over the side of like, here's the entire plot point for the entire thing. But people see the one image and like, yeah, but this is an entire chapter, you just don't know it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I am always very curious, and that's partially why I started doing these talks, because I find the process of world building, it's so individual from person to person, right? It's just like writing. It's just like outlining. Everyone has their own system, or maybe they don't have a system and they just go and throw it against the wall and see what sticks. So the question I picked up a long time ago from my writer friends was, are you a plotter or are you a pantser?
A pantser.
A pantser. Are you? Okay. Do you go by the seat of your pants?
Oh no, I'm not Nathan.
Oh, shame.
Oh, he knows this. I constantly make fun of him for it. The way that I do it, it's not necessarily like potentially railroading. I'm not like, here are the things you have to do in the road. Like the way I do it is, I call it the sandbox. So I build an entire world, and then I bury a bunch of toys in it, and then they just let them go. So they go to one corner, I'm like, I know what's already over there. And they find it's like, what is this? And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go. We're gonna pull up that chapter. This is what we're doing. So like, I don't like, forcing people into a corner and forcing, like, obviously there's scenarios when we have to do that, especially when we're running a podcast, we have to be a little more confined. But I like to let the players kind of come into their own adventure and feel like they're out there exploring their own thing and not like they're in some sort of predetermined linear video game.
Right. There's no marker saying plot point here, red skull over here, like in Fall, when you run around in Fallout.
Yeah. And there are plot points everywhere. They don't know it, but I've got these huge lists of like, okay, well, this conversation with this character is going to trigger this quest. And they're on like 7 different, like the team I'm running right now, like they're on like probably like 7, 8 different quests right now. They just don't know it. They've just preceded these like little plot points here and there. And I've got plot points that happen when they're doing things. Like I have a timeline for other events that are happening in the background. Like if they don't do something, there are consequences to the other thing. So they don't know that this is necessarily consequences, but things happen and they change.
Right. And the world moves.
Yeah, everything keeps moving forward. We'll never stand still. Like, we watch a movie and we're focused on these little groups of characters, but really there's all this stuff that's happening regardless of them. The rest of the world doesn't fucking give a shit about what they're doing. They're doing their own thing. So, action doesn't just happen in one place.
Right. You're bringing up something really interesting, and it's come up in every single one of these conversations so far. So I always want to know something. So the more you write and the more you build your own stories and your own worlds, does that, for me, I have found that the more that I do, the harder it is for me to passively enjoy other people's stories, especially mass entertainment. Because I'm like, but that over there has a consequence that you just left that big old plot hole. I can't do this anymore. Does that ever happen to you?
I love media, like, and a part of that's just because when I'm drawing, I have ADHD, so I always need to be constantly stimulated. Like, there's like 7 streams of things that are happening, and if those aren't all occupied, something's gonna go off the rails. So while I'm drawing, I'm usually watching TV, and like I just watch show after show, movies, tons of like crime documentaries, everything. So, I'm picky about what I watch, but also not like I will watch trash TV. I'm watching True Blood right now. Like, we all know that's trash. Let's be honest about that. This is total trash. But there's an enjoyment I get out of it, and sometimes I'm just like, God, I would never do that. That's a terrible decision. But you're experiencing a bunch of these different things and different ways that people pursue things. Is also like you're also learning what not to do.
Yeah, that's true.
And just as long as like I don't absolutely hate it and get some sort of enjoyment out of it, then it's good. But like, but then of course, obviously, the more complex and actually developed stories is, the more I have to pay attention. So like, I'm also watching Dark right now, which I can't really be writing up notes about other stuff while doing that. I kind of have to be paying attention because there's 30 timelines and a billion people. Yep. So, but with True Blood, like I can walk out of the room for 5 minutes and come back and not have missed anything really.
Oh, they're still crying. Oh, they're still eating. Okay, fine.
Now they're fucking, and there's blood.
Right, great, cool. I'm always curious about that because it's I don't want to generalize, with folks when we're talking about writing, but I do find that a lot of people fall into one of the two camps. Whereas they either just get they're like me and just naturally impatient, and I'm like, come on. What's that Jim Gaffigan thing? That chip, chop, chip. Come on, chip, chop, chip. Or
for me, it's harder to be a player in tabletop games because of that. Because I'm just like, okay, I'm like really interested in all these little plot details, but I also don't want to just like run over everybody and have like take over everything that's going on. And you know what? Like, because I'm really interested in this sort of thing, doesn't necessarily mean these other people are, and that's kind of part of my like I like super empathetic in that way. I just want to let them do their thing, let them be and have their own enjoyment, not have to steal everything and be a control freak like I am, which is also what being a DM is works really well for my personality, is because then I have control over the different aspects and able to help move things along without being a dick and being that guy at the table.
Being that person at the table that no one
Yeah,
wants
I
to
don't want
play
to be
with.
that person.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. That I have found that as well, that the switch to DMing made my brain click in a way that I felt actually more creative.
Yeah.
And then it's like it reawakened to some kind of monster in the back of my brain that was like, but stories, blah, and just started vomiting them out over the last several years. I was like, oh god.
Yeah. I find like after being a DM now, I feel more like when I'm playing, I'm a stagehand. Like, okay, how do I help the DM do their thing? I'm never like, I know these people are so invested in all their characters and all this sort of stuff, but like, I like my characters, but I'm not crazy invested. Theirs is probably the one that I'm the most invested in of anything that I've done, just because I'm busy when I'm playing that character trying to make everything else happen and be cohesive.
Right.
so I feel like, and it's like, which is one of the reasons why like I enjoy it, but I also feel a little bit like it's work. So unless I'm like playing with people that it's really chill with, and I don't really necessarily feel like playing. So I have to like people that I'm playing with. It's kind of like, but this is work for me otherwise.
Right.
I don't like strangers.
No, I get that. Yeah, stranger TTRPG danger. No, that I do get that on a level. That you are giving voice to something that I have always found difficult to try to explain. So I appreciate that. I love playing, but there are occasions where I'm like, feels like homework.
Yeah.
This feels like I've been given a pop quiz. I don't know all the answers, and also there's a graph. So
yeah.
Fuck my life. Just like
yeah. Another thing's when you're with a party that's like really indecisive too. You're like, okay, someone make a decision. Don't make me be the one to make the decisions, because I'm gonna try and make the decisions that's gonna try and reveal the plot points. That's what I'm gonna do. You want me to show you the scaffolding? That's what I'll do. Let someone else do it.
Yep, that's where someone's just like, oh, it's just a chest. I'm like, no, that was left here by the Lich King, and the blah 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 blah. It ties back to this thing we found 4 games ago, and then I have to just sit on my hands.
Yeah, I'm that one person that's paid attention to everything, has been writing notes this entire time. Yeah. I'm just like,
also maybe slightly paranoid, and like go into it and be like, yeah,
this is what I would do. So.
You have my full permission that if Eggs ever doesn't pick up on something and you want her to pick up on it, you can just throw her, physically pick her up and just fling her into it and she'll get it.
I feel like I've done that a couple times with you.
You have, and I fully appreciate that. It's like
that's one thing I love about playing Vera's, is just because like just so blunt and just doesn't really care.
Right.
It's having that like cultural barrier is kind of fun, just because I get to play in a different way that I don't normally get to. I don't have to be all logical and like socially compliant with everything.
Yep.
Sure, let's eat the thing. It's fine.
Varys is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun because it really does, and the Eggs is just back there like, okay.
Yeah, Varys doesn't worry about anything, and Eggs worries about everything.
That's perfect. It's perfect. Oh my god. And for
these are our characters in Chef's Night, by the way.
That's what I was gonna say. Yep. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Yeah, I highly encourage everyone to give both DM's Test Kitchen podcasts listen to, because it is just so much fun, especially because I was talking with Nathan about this last week. Y'all in Test Kitchen, you play some systems that I probably wouldn't normally touch. Just preference wise, but it's so fun to listen to, like Star Wars or some of these other rules light systems that I'm now kind of coming around on, where I'm like, okay, I dig that.
Fiasco, I never thought I'd love it as much as I did. It's so good.
That to me is just so. I also too would feel that way just looking at some of those systems that y'all get into, and it's just so fun to experience them through someone else's eyes.
yeah, there's so many different systems, and like that's really how we started doing this podcasting thing. It's like, okay, well, everyone does something. Like, okay, you can go on for a billion seasons doing D&D, but there's people that do that already, and
Right.
there's so many systems. There's so many systems, and so many people just have themselves cordoned off into the D&D without ever going beyond that. And there's a really big world out there.
Yeah.
So we've got what we do is we have a list of about a couple hundred games, I think right now. It's an Excel sheet of different, every time we see a game, like we should put that one on the list, and it goes on the list. And then we each have 5 games that are on a D20 list. So every time we finish up a game, we roll the D20, and whatever one comes up is the one we do next. Like we're doing Star Trek next, even though we just did Star Wars, but that was just what came up.
That's what came up.
Yeah, so like Tales from the Loop, I cannot wait to play. That one's on my list. We bought the My Little Pony RPG game, and like we're going to do this one day. Yeah, there's like we have so many systems in the house that we just haven't touched yet. We haven't had time,
Right.
but we keep buying them. I've kickstarted so many games. There's guidance people in town that actually make an RPG. Like we've got the books. My brother and I went and played it at the tabletop con here. I'm like, oh, this was actually fun. It's just we haven't actually brought it up on the show yet.
Yeah.
Like, and we've been running the show for August 25th was our second year anniversary for
wow.
the show. Yeah, and we've gone through 6 or 7 systems, but even then, like, well, we need to go faster. And with everything going on right now, we're not playing, so that's going to prolong us getting into other systems even longer.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything on that list where you're just okay, so you mentioned Tales from the Loop. Are there any other ones that you can immediately think of you're just dying to play?
Tales from the Loop is a really big one. It's on my list. I'm curious about trying Vampire Masquerade. I've heard different things about it, but I'm just kind of a vampire nerd, and I love that kind of stuff. So I want to give it a try, like, because this is classic vampire fantasy stuff. So it's worth giving a shot. And I played the video game Masquerade Bloodlines or whatever, and that was a lot of fun. So yeah, that's what I'm curious about. Yeah, Tales from Loop. Dungeon World. Dungeon World is another one that's really big on the list.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
I'm a big fan of Friends at the Table, and just ever since they exposed me to them, like, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite games that we haven't played on the show yet that I've played outside, but I've played in the other show that I'm working on is The Quiet Year, which is so good. Okay, Quiet Year is like they advertise it as a map drawing game, and basically what it is you have a group of players. There's no DM, and you're basically building like a little community. So when you first start the game, like each person's got to think of like what's a resource that this community has or doesn't have, they're lacking. Like, okay, well they have wood, so there's a forest nearby, so you draw a forest. And someone's like, okay, there's lots of fish, so you draw something where the fish are. And so everyone just takes turns drawing this kind of stuff, and then like you get started and you go around the table and you draw a card that gives you 2 prompts. It's like, okay, a bad omen's been spotted, what is it? Or there's a good omen's been spotted, what is it? And you have to make that decision. And you're not playing individual characters per se. Like, you're making up these characters in this community as you go, and you can do groups of them, and like, okay, well, this turn so and so went and did this. And then you can start projects like, oh, we're going to build a barn to try and address the issue with our animals getting killed. And you just keep going, and you go throughout the year. So it's the entire year. You start in spring. And some of the decisions and stuff get completely wild and wacky. And this is actually part of what we did for our world building for Feast or Famine, which is the one I'm running. I actually, in the files I sent you, there is the map that we did.
Ooh, okay. I will switch that. I'm going to do an art switcheroony here. Map, Feast. Okay. Got that.
Yeah, so there's a little shitty, like, looks like a paint map.
It does look like a paint map!
Yeah. So this is what we did.
Okay, I'm going to put this up on the overlay so y'all can see this. So keep going while I do this.
Sure. So yeah, for Feast or Famine, like, the whole thing I had this idea, like, okay, I was actually trying to develop a one-shot for something else entirely different, and this idea into my brain, I'm like, oh my god, what if a Feast or Famine? I'm like, what if there's 2 seasons? What if one season everything sucks, and the other season everything tries to kill you? And then this concept came about, and so it's like, okay, I need people to play this with, and so wanted to do this kind of big group world building thing. So we did a couple session zeros where I like looked into a bunch of world building prompts and stuff, and we worked through a bunch of things and developed a couple ideas of how the world is.
Oh,
And
I
then we're like,
lost
okay,
your face. Hold on. I just have flamingos all over your face.
flamingos. And
Sorry.
like, oh yeah, I guess it just
Yeah.
got dark on us.
Yeah, that I think the light shifted.
There we go.
Yay! Okay, continue. Sorry.
I'm like flamingos are bad, but
Well, true, but I want to see your face.
yeah. So actually, we should probably switch back. There's another map that I want to show you, which is
Yes.
Where's my world map?
Is this the
I guess
session
it's
0 one or?
Yeah, do the session 0 one. I didn't put the normal map up there.
Okay.
Put that away.
Let
Session world
me
0, that's fine.
let me switch this out. Unlock. Properties. Change. Bam! Alright. There we go.
So this was kind of like the play map that I put together for us doing session 0. And like, these are things that we kind of know. Like, I put it around the edge and then let's talk about it. Here's the world. Let's get into it. So like, once I kind of started figuring out this idea, I drew this map and then we all just started talking about it and building up the ideas. It's like, okay, we have an idea about the world. Like after session 0, we went and, you know, had a broad idea of like what culture's like and all this sort of stuff. And then like, but where are we going to start playing? Because it's a massive place that we've created. Like, how do you pinpoint where you're going to go? And then that's, of course, then where we went into the quiet year, which is that other map. So like, okay, let's just make a town up. And this is where you guys are going to start. And so now you can switch back to the other map. Yeah, like where the fuck are we going to go? I don't know. Yeah. This is a massive map. And so, yeah, we start with a blank page and then play quiet year, knowing with what we know. So, yeah.
Wow.
So this is the end state of our map. And it's just funny looking at it just because, like, you don't know what's going on. You're like, I have no idea what it is, any of it. So like, cause yeah, when you start, you pick a resource. You pick a couple resources, and you guys decide what are your resources. So on the bottom right, you can kind of see what our resources were. The stuff that's like circled in green or stuff that we had in surplus. The stuff that was not green is like something that we necessarily didn't have, or maybe we're losing one way or another.
Okay.
So like, we started out with knowledge because there was an old library with the town. Like, okay, yeah, there's this library here. It's like some library of Alexandria. It's always been here, and you know, it's like, oh, there's a lake, then in the middle there's this island, it looks like a skull, it's Skull Island. And we just kind of rolled with that from there. And like, okay, in the beginning you have to each make at least one inhabitant of this town. So we all like made our inhabitants and then wrote their names and drew their little houses. So like my guy was Willis. He's a Goliath painter who came to start this community 10 years ago because he wasn't really accepted back home because his family wanted him to get into construction, and he's like, oh, but I want to paint things. So now he lives in the lake and paints things. And yeah, so we all made up these little characters, and then the game starts, and like you draw cards, you make decisions.
Wow.
There's this tower in the center, which is where you kind of got those the beam coming up. Basically, we ended up finding out that there was an underground city.
Oh, okay.
So there was this whole city that was underground. It was all built, but there's no furniture. It was perfectly built, but no one had ever actually lived there. In the center of the town, we found this big black obelisk. And we're like, wow, this is fucking weird. And so the guy he's the blacksmith, but he's also like a super nerd. And so trying to like understand the secrets of this library, decided he's got to start studying this because there's a bunch of runes on it. And then he started to go crazy. I'm like, what the fuck? He's like, okay, I'm gonna hold off on this for a while. And we started focusing on other things. And then people showed up in town and started worshiping this obelisk and like making people join in a ritual with them. And then one day the obelisk just boom, big beam of light up into the air, destroyed the tower, and now there's just this light. And like this is also just happened just because we get a prompt and like one of us is like, okay, well, yeah, this is what's gonna happen. And like at one point someone's like, there's a bad omen to the west, what is it? And like, oh, we see smoke, like maybe there's a village or something burning over there.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually we got a prompt that was like, some new people coming to town, who are they? We're like, oh, there's a group of dwarves that came over from where that smoke is. And so like we're gonna call them the smoke people, and we start making up things as we go. It's a collaborative storytelling thing, and it's so much fun, and the wackiest shit comes out of it. And like the further into the year you get, the more challenging the questions and topics are, and often like the more horrifying things are. At one point we had a group of kids that came to town. Like, so we got the town established now. We need to kind of get some more people. Let's see if we can recruit some young people. And so young people came to town, but like, well, dog, this sucks. We want some salt. And like they kind of get in a bit of a squabble with the older members of town. Like, well, we don't have any salt right now. Just chill out. It's fine. And they're like, nah, fuck this shit. We're gone. And so they go off into the woods. We're like, okay, bye. And so we're focusing on trying to get the town together and get everything ready for the famine.
Mm-hmm.
So, because that's when the way that we, even though it's 4 seasons for the actual game, our world has 2 seasons. So, like, okay, the entire time we're playing is during the feast. And that's when things grow, animals reproduce, it's easy to find food. But the famine, nothing grows, nothing reproduces. So, you have to be prepared for the famine. So, you're all this time during the feast, you're like, pickling shit and preserving shit as much as you can, just so that when the famine hits, you guys will live.
Right.
And so these kids fuck off. And we're like, okay, well, what's going to carry on? We don't know what the hell's going to happen to him. And a couple of weeks later, one of the kids comes back and he's like, he was all scared. He's like, I left because people started to die. And we're like, okay. And then the rest of them came back, and for 75% of the group were turned into salt, and they brought the bodies back with them.
Oh.
But they're like, hey, we got salt now.
Oh no. Oh no, tech issues. Hold on. Let me see if I can fix it. No.
Okay, I'm back.
Yeah, you're back. Okay, I was like, ah!
What's the last thing you heard?
75% of them got turned into salt.
Yeah. So they came back and we had a big town council meeting of like, well, do we eat the salt people? Because now we have salt. We can start preserving the game. This would be really beneficial, but do we do it? And there's a bunch of arguments, and eventually it's like, you know what? They would have wanted us to anyway. So we started eating the salt people. Broke them all down and salt. That was great. Then we had some people that were mining in the underground city because they found like a second level, and like, oh, there's just like salt here. There's tons of this, like these little hills of pink salt. Like, okay, well, we got more salt. This is great. And so we started bringing that salt out, and then people started getting sick. They started getting these salt lesions all over their bodies. It was like a plague, and we're like, oh shit. Especially since we went and started to trade it with other communities. We're like, oh shit. We sent our cleric out to go warn people. We're like, by the way, be careful with the salt. We don't really know what's causing it yet. So we did a bunch of like research and like, okay, well, what is it? Oh, well, okay. It seems to be this salt has some sort of magical properties. It seems to come from both the pink salt and from the people salt. It doesn't really matter. We just have to really control the amount of salt that we consume. And like the scientist guy was able to like figure out this is the right amount that you can have per like body weight or whatever. Like, okay. And then as they're digging up the salt downstairs, one day this woman notices that there's kind of this like rift there in the like floating in the air. There's like something, and she realizes it's bleeding. There's like blood pouring out of it, and that's why the salt's pink. And we determined that this void is basically, it's a hole into a plane where that was a monster, like a beast that is a plane that's a living creature that's bleeding into the world.
Oh my god, that's horrifying,
right?
And I love it. Oh my god. That makes me so happy.
Yeah, it was so much fun, and we came up with such fucked up stuff like that. That it's just, oh man, like we created like the best place for us to start with this game, because like, okay, we finished, and like when you hit winter, the card that ends the game is in there random. You don't know when you're gonna get it.
Okay.
So your first card could be it. When I played the game with another friend, my first card was it. And like, you're trying to get all these other things done and all these projects done, but then suddenly the game ends.
Ooh.
Like, well, shit.
Yeah.
So things were like left in a like we got a fair bit to the season before we pulled the card, but things were like up in the air. There was so much chaos going on when the game ended. Like, cool, now you guys get to play here.
Yeah.
This is all your problem now. But it's also a great way for us, like, it helped us develop all these characters in this little town. It gave me a lot to work with when I was building up the town and for us to play. Like I built out the map. So this map here, if you go over to the next map over in the folder there, the one that's 06 sunk.
Yep, let me... Oh, yeah, look at this. Hold on, folks. I'm going to move that over for everyone. And... there's probably an easier way to do this other than what I am actively doing, but this is the way that I know how to do it. Bam! Okay. There we go.
All right, so this is what I did in the Dungeon Studio Painter. This is
Cool.
what the town actually looks like as I translated it from our sketch and our stories.
Wow.
And I built up tons of maps and stuff to go with this. I went crazy. I've bought maps for everything, every building here, just because I know so much about the area because we spent so much time there.
Right.
Yeah, and then so the town's called Sunk. We couldn't figure out what we wanted to call it, so we all like hit a random letter and then press enter. And our letters were SUNQ.
Oh,
So
okay.
that is our town name. But Sunk, this is fine. This is what's gonna be.
This is
Um,
really cool. Wow.
yeah. So if you go over to not the one immediately after it, but the next one after it, there's a bit of a drawing that I started to do of the town.
The boop 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 boop.
2020 0412.
Uh, zero. Okay. Aha, here we go. Okay, sorry. It takes me a second sometimes when I'm looking at like stuff. Okay. And then all I have to do is hit the thing and switch it out. I just have to redirect the file where it should go. There we go. And then shrink that down if it'll let me. Come on! Alright, there we go.
Yeah, and this is just a kind of an illustration I started of the town. So like this is what it looks like when you walk into the town. So like just based off of all these stories and stuff, we were able to develop this really complex area and this living area. And it's been a lot of fun just because the players are already invested in the characters in town. They're already invested in the town's well-being. They're not just like, who cares, burn it down.
Yeah.
So like, and there's always that kind of risk of balance right now of like, okay, but like we really don't want to let this person get hurt. We really don't want to leave this town suddenly completely screwed and to starve for the rest of the year. You know,
Right.
there's a lot more consideration to it, which has been really fun to work with.
So when you all initially played the Quiet Year, how long did that session go?
So typically a quiet year game will take about 3 to 4 hours.
Okay.
We did it for I think for 6 hours. We ended up doing it 2 sessions just because we think our first session went about 4 hours, and a lot of that was kind of us just like getting into the swing of things and just talking a bit about where we're establishing. But yeah, I think the total thing ends up being like after I cut out because we recorded it, after I cut it down a fair amount, it was like 3 hours or so of like actual content. So it varies from game to game, and of course how long people take for turns and stuff like that. But
Okay.
yeah, it was about 3 hours for us.
About 3 hours. And then off of this world that you all built, so you're gonna get into an actual. You mentioned that it's gonna become a show.
Yes. Yeah. So all the stuff has been recorded. Our session 0 is recorded, as well as the quiet year session. We've just been recording as we've been going. We've still been playing right now. I don't really have a launch date in mind yet. Just sort of going through it. I was gonna start like chunking out the episodes soon, and yeah, eventually it's gonna it's the show that I'm gonna be running on the DMTK network. It's gonna be Feast or Famine.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I cannot wait to listen to that because it's just like I'm looking at these maps and these pieces of art that you've done for Sunk, and it like I can see a story there. The details that you all built into this place make me go, okay, well now I want to just give me your secrets. Like I want to know the things. So this is really, really cool. I'm pumped to listen to that whenever y'all launch it.
Thanks. Yeah, feel free to throw other stuff throw up stuff if you want.
Okay, I will do that. So some of these other drawings that you, Cayla just sent me like a big old folder of stuff that we can kind of go through. Do you want me to put up some of the people?
Sure, whatever.
Or because
actually, do 03 gods. Let's start there.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, we need to get that up there. Yes. Okay. So it's gonna be real big for a second because that's what it do when I start loading things in. And then I should be able to burp. Look at that. Cool.
Sweet. So I had this idea for the seasons, and that's kind of where the whole thing started from. And I was like, okay, but why are the seasons that way? And basically I got this idea in my head. Okay, well, what if like 1,200 years ago or whatever, everything changed? Like I've never really been a big fan of stories where the gods are directly interacting with people, like a lot of fantasy games have. It's like deities and stuff and patrons are like really hands on. And I was like, I wanted it to be a bit more mythological, like unquestionable whether or not are these gods actually existing, or is it just like a normal religion where people believe in it. Um, so what I decided basically was that 1,200 years ago, a big event happened called the Exodus. And the Exodus basically was almost like a giant nuke. There was a capital city called Iaska, which was the Druid city of portals. So the Druid faction called the Conclave, they were like the leading technological magic people experts. Like they were the ones who were driving everything, and they had expanded all this other world exploration. They made this city where they're like have all these portals to other world, and they're bringing people in, and they're doing trading and stuff. And then because of all this activity, it caused some devastating explosion. No one is quite exactly sure what happened. There's many differing rumors about what happened, but basically the city got freaking decimated. And during this, what happened is all the planes shattered. Every other plane completely shattered. A part of this was these shards then of these planes flew out all over the world, like embedding in the ground. And this is all left of these planes. So a shard of land, and if it's like from a fire plane, it's like a little pocket of that fire plane where things will be coming out of it. You've got like diseases and monsters and foreign wildlife that comes out of these shards that are everywhere. And so the world just irrevocably changed after this. That's when we got the new seasons, and that was terrible. The first time that they said this suddenly happened, like suddenly during the feast, nature just grows over roads. Everything just goes crazy. You could sure harvest a lot, and there's lots of animals and stuff that you can eat. But then when the famine hits, the first time the famine hit, like suddenly there's 6 months where you can't grow food. And how the society adapted to this. So at this point now in the world, 1,200 years later, people have had to become a lot more self-sufficient, and these towns have become so much more isolated. So whereas like you have something like Faerun, when like there's all these like governments and places that everyone's communicating and everyone knows about everybody, this here, like over a famine, all your neighbors could be gone, you don't know it.
Right. So
it's changed how society functions a lot. And part of this as well was when the Exodus happened, all the gods died but two. Vren and Talmor. They were the youngest of the gods. The rest of the gods basically, when they realized what was happening, tried to protect their two young children. And they're also, lovers and siblings, because gods.
That's about the, yeah.
And so Vren, she's the one on the left. She is like the goddess of like life and the feast. And then we have Talmor on the other side, who is of death and the famine. The way that the gods decided to try and protect them was they made it so that for half of the year, one slumbers while the other is active. So they can never be awake at the same time. And that's what people attribute the seasons to. And that like during the famine, she's sleeping while he's trying to do the best that he can, but he's heartbroken, and then he has a really difficult time dealing everything, and everything's just dying. And one of the things that happens is this whole legend around like part of this heart's broken because of it, and she's trying to constantly try to heal this heart. So it's just like that little purple crystals that she's holding. And that's why things grow so rampantly during the feast, is because she's trying to pull as much life energy together as possible to try and fix this. And it's been 1,200 years and it hasn't happened yet. So this leads to two big pillars in this world. Is we have the clerics of Run, which are clerics. Every town has a church that it practices these religions, and there are clerics there. And the one place that you can grow food during the famine is within these churches. The church's grounds are all soil, and the clerics tend it during the famine. It's the only place you can grow anything, and there's a lot of superstition about why that is, a lot of rumors about why that is. So then the other half of that is then Talmor and the thorns of Talmor. So these are necromancers. So necromancers are a pillar of this community because they're required during the feast to keep nature back, or
Okay.
else it will just swallow a whole town. So during the feast, every town usually has at least one necromancer there to help them and keep things in check. So this has made a situation where, well, the necromancers are good guys, which is contrary to so many things.
Right.
And the druids are the bad guys because everyone blames the druids for what happened and they've just been gone. But they're kind of like the boogeyman now because no one knows what's going on in the corners of nature because no one fucking ventures out there unless you absolutely have to.
Yeah.
But you know, there's always settings like, oh my god, I saw a druid, and it's like witch trials almost the way sometimes it's like, oh, so and so's a druid. I saw him like grow a plant the other day. So it's at this point, no one knows like, are the druids actually still around? Did they all die? But they are the boogeyman. Everyone's terrified of them. Anything to do with druids, they don't want anything to do with at all.
Wow.
So we have these two sides. And so one of our players is one of the necromancers. And we put a lot of work into this trying to figure out like, well, how does a necromancer blend into this whole situation without it being like bad?
Right.
And yeah, using it to kill back the plant life, using it as a way to help defend towns from, you know, during the feast, even though things are growing and plentiful, there's also a lot of big creatures that are hungry running around and will totally fuck your shit up. So yeah, they're a defense mechanism where the clerics help heal and educate and take care of a town.
And how do, and obviously don't, you know, spoil anything or divulge anything, but like are these two groups of people, do they understand each other that each one serves a purpose, or do they like?
No, these two are good. They're like they're two sides of the same coin.
Okay.
They understand that, you know, there's got to be a balance and they work together. They train separately, like the cathedral the cathedrals of the Thorns are in separate areas versus where like there's a couple big cathedrals where the clerics for the most part just usually have a church in every town. There's a couple areas that are like sanctuaries that are more like education centers, but usually the clerics are just more dispersed and more among the people, whereas the Thorns, they usually only come out during the feast. A lot of them go home during the famine because there's not much that they can do. Everything's dying anyways.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're good friends. The people that don't like them, they don't really get along with, is the Mages Council, which is the science-oriented group.
Okay.
So the Mages Council believes that magic is not some mystical being force. It's just a bunch of series of equations and actions that cause magic to happen. When you do things just right, it makes magic. And so they've got it all down to a science. They're constantly writing it about all this, and they think that Talmor is not actually a real god. They think he's a false god, and that he's been brought in and as a way to help control people. And the Thorns combat a lot, where the clerics come like, let's just be friends, guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, the mages are independent magic users from these people, because otherwise most people don't do magic. Because like getting into nature magic, that's Druid territory, that's bad.
That's bad.
And if you otherwise you have magic, go join the clerics or go join the necromancers.
Right.
And then there's the mages as a completely separate entity that's kind of like, okay, but you know, everyone can do magic. We can show you how. And they're like, don't do that. Because one of the things that we have, because one of the things we have in this world is magic costs something. Every time you cast magic, it costs something. And so like we're very cognizant of that. Like, okay, you're going to use some magic. What's the cost? Okay, do you have some sort of components you're using? Or like we had a situation where one of our guys had to heal somebody, and so he killed the tree to do it.
Okay.
Yeah. So like magic has very not understood and very feared, especially ever since the exits happened. So the common folk is like, I don't know about magic if it's not from the clerics or the Thorns. I don't want anything to do with it.
Right. I like the concept of magic costing something. You do see that in some like really, really well done fantasy books where it has an active, and it's not just you forgot your ruby dust, yeah, sure, whatever, it's kind of a thing.
Yeah, we are a bit more like, waving your hand over to not make it ridiculous and, just too granular. Like, but sure. We are like after on the moment, like, okay, well, what are you using this time?
Yeah.
As long as it's nothing too crazy, like if they can justify it in the fiction, then we're good to go.
Yeah, that's very cool. I like that a lot because it's just a different way of approaching it and thinking about it. It makes the players, you don't feel like a magic spam bot.
Yeah.
Heal, bitch. It's not like you can heal, but there's a price for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's very
Yeah,
cool.
it definitely, and it causes them to think about the environment and what they're doing as well, and
Right.
describe it and like think about it other than just like, fireball. Like
Yeah.
they got like, okay, what I'm gonna do. So,
Oh my gosh, I love this. Oh, this sounds like so much fun. Uh, Especially in two, like breaking it down to 2 seasons and knowing it's like the ultimate prepper, right? You have to be like the
yeah.
ultimate prepper for the famine.
Well, that's our halflings. So a lot of the races have of peoples have blended together at this point because we just need to fucking survive. But there are some peoples that have sanctioned themselves off and said fuck everyone else. The halflings are that. They're like Mad Max preppers, live out in the desert and like mobile bases, and they don't want shit to do with anybody. And they just they're complete badasses.
I love that. Oh my god. Somebody's up on top of the mobile halfling house going
Exactly, 100%.
I freaking love it. Now I just have this image of like Frodo Baggins doing that. I'm sorry. It's like a weird image that I just got in my brain. Oh, that's amazing. Oh,
yeah, one of the things during our session zero was talk about what fantasy tropes we want to avoid.
Yeah.
And what do we want to do differently? One of the things we decided was elves don't really, there's almost no elves left. Most of them died during the Exodus.
Okay.
And the only ones that are left have all been adopted. They don't know their elven parents. No one knows how long elves live anymore.
Okay.
So all the elves grew up, they don't have their culture, they don't have anything. They're just like, well, I guess we're here. So there's half elves that are kind of around, there's elves, and they just adopt whatever cultures. Like one of the characters that we have in the town, Emily, she's an elf. There's that picture of her in there. She was raised by kobolds.
I love that.
Yeah, her gay dads.
Oh my god.
So yeah, elves don't really have a culture. They're not as prominent as you see in a lot of fantasy places, just because of the fact that in a lot of fantasy stories, when you live forever, you happen to gain a lot of power.
Okay.
So they're kind of a way of turning that a little bit. And with humans, they've been scattered so much since they have such a short lifespan, and everything that they ever believed in, because they believed in a lot of different gods, they're gone. And they don't really have a culture. They just kind of blend in wherever they go. And they're the one people that can reproduce with all the other peoples.
But
we have a biology system of which races can breed, and humans can sleep with anything.
Hey, well, we do anyways. So
Exactly.
It's it works. It's the ultimate emollient for everyone. It just kind of all works together. Sure, why not? Is there anything as far as building this world? You said you've already done this with elves. Was there any other consideration that you took into account? Are you looking at the getting rid of some of the really bad stereotypes?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
Okay, I already hate that stereotype. I always play the monstrous races anyways, like gnolls and drow and orcs. They're all my favorite. I love the potential that there is to develop something there, especially since most of the fiction out there is shitty, so you can really do whatever you want with it and you're going somewhere good. If you go down to there's a file named Nora version 3 or V3, throw that up.
Oh, yep, absolutely.
Big
Ooh, this is so pretty. Yep, I'll switch that out as you're talking. So here we go. Perfect.
So orcs in this world are like war journalists. They're super into knowledge and to documenting everything and learning everything and seeing what the world has to offer. So they just wander off in the world and they go do this. But they did have a place that was their own. And where we see there over to the right where it says remnants of Orthar, that is where their continent used to be.
Oh,
but
okay.
50 years ago, a mountain fell from the sky and destroyed it.
Oh.
So all this is these scattered islands, which the orc population is pretty much okay because most of them were out exploring anyways. But enough. They don't have a home really anymore other than these a couple random islands. And there's 2 prominent there's two prominent tribes divisions within the orcs. There's the Kendrali and the Yuratai.
Mm-hmm.
And the Kendrali, they are like jungle dwelling orcs. The continent they lived on was like jungle around the bottom, and then there was these really tall mountains with lots of snow and stuff, and that was the Yuratai. They were up there, and so they have slightly different physical appearances, but the way that their society functions is they each have a leader representative within their group, and then those two work together, and they're called the twin orcs, and those are the leaders of the orcs.
Nice.
Yeah, so they work good, and they're both ladies, and they're great. And how the society works a lot is like usually it's mostly the men that are out doing their whole war journalism thing, and the women kind of come out as bodyguards.
Okay.
So they're there to kind of like defend them, and like they're the badasses that are gonna fuck your shit up. where the men are like, ooh, I need to write this down. So yeah, they're always wandering out in the world trying to learn things, and so orcs are pretty prevalent in a lot of places. And then like usually once a year they come back for there's a couple orc like holidays and celebrations where they get back together with everybody and exchange what they've learned and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, since I love orcs so much, like I spent a lot of time trying to develop the culture for them because I really wanted to do something that was different.
Yeah. That's very cool. This map is like dope as shit. I just keep staring at it because it's very pretty.
Yeah, just kind of got like our countries kind of divided out in it. So
yeah, that is really, really cool. Wow. And I want to reiterate for the stream, Cayla draws all this shit. It's like so impressive. I love that. That's very cool. Dare I ask about the end?
The end. There's a picture of the end in the folder.
Oh, okay. Let me go find it. Oh, yes, there is. Oh, but okay. Unlock. Okay. I'm really learning how to do this fast. Look at that. Okay. There we go. That is cool.
All right. So the end is a giant hole in the ocean.
Oh my.
Surrounded by this string of islands and all this ice around it as well. Almost all the ice in the world is exported from the end because there's always ice there. And very few people live here. No one knows what's at the bottom. Anyone who's ever tried to explore just disappears. There's like legends and all sorts of stuff like what's down there. They try to do expeditions down there, but it's just too risky. The water just falls, and for some reason the ocean doesn't empty. No one knows exactly why.
Ooh.
There is a picture of slowly after that of an orc woman. 2020-07.
The armor or
the orc lady. So 2020-07. She's got the purple background.
Oh, okay. God, I'm staring right at it. Hello. Goodness gracious. Okay, so who is this lady?
This is Cayla. She is the cleric of Sunk. She's kind of like in her 60s. She's half orc. No one knows what the other half is, and she just keeps lying to people what the other half is. She became a cleric. She was like a field medic before. She was with like kind of a group of people that were just going on adventures and expeditions and trying to find artifacts. And then one day they were out exploring at the end, and she fell in. And then she woke up nearby where Sunk is on the river, and she doesn't know how she got there. She has no memory of what happened, and she's like, fuck. She's like, I guess I'm too old to do this shit anymore. And the person that helped rescue her was a cleric who then trained her to be a cleric.
Okay.
And then, they went and founded Sunk together with a bunch of other people, and now that woman's dead. There's a whole mystery behind that.
Oh dear. But, okay.
Yeah, Cayla, she's seen some shit. She's a very non-traditional cleric in that, like, she thinks, since she comes from a field medic background, she like knows how to do physical medicine as well, not just magic. And she's very skeptical of everything. And they found like a book on some like old druid book in the library, and she's like reading it, and she's like, there's a spell here that we can use to protect the town. But then people freaked out, and they're like, fucking no druid shit. Right. So like she's very open-minded, and she's very skeptical, and she knows that there's more to this world than people did than what's at the face value. Okay. She's one of my favorite characters. So yeah, she fell in the end, and she wound up back.
The only so is she seen like as a folk hero then in some regard because she survived this strange place that no one's come back from?
Most people don't know about that. Like you wouldn't
Oh,
really tell
okay.
people really. So the players don't know yet. They haven't asked her. um, yeah, like the person that she really talked to it about was her mentor, the orc lady. Her name was Moira. She was the cleric.
Mm-hmm.
Her husband is a guy that hangs out in the library all the time. They moved to Sunk and established a church and stuff, and she pretty much let Tala take over doing the church stuff, and Moira was doing her own thing. And then about 3 years in, she died, and no one knows what caused it.
Okay. Wow.
So Tala's seen some shit. She's like, her best friend ever, inventor, is dead. She's not sure why, and yeah, she's just really suspicious of the world and all our like set traditions.
You're killing me here because now I need to know everything. I'm like, this is, oh my god, this is great. I have so many questions now. I'm just like, I want to look at all the things.
I probably have the answers.
You don't have to divulge everything. I am very curious though, like how you'd mentioned that the towns themselves can be pretty removed from each other. So in regards to that, the average layperson will say, do they have a rough idea of where other places are in the world, or
they know kind of the continents.
okay?
But if you go to 2020-0610,
Bick, 0610. Yes, I can do that.
so this is kind of a hand-drawn map of the region in which Sunk is in.
Okay.
So the players had to kind of figure out the area, and so what is written down there is what they think is the case. And there's roads that are marked there, but there's also roads question mark. So these were roads once upon a time. They don't know if they're still roads.
Okay.
So you can see, maybe there'll be a road,
but who knows? Yeah.
Yeah. So you really only are in direct contact with the like surrounding communities. The communities usually have a lot of them are called cluster communities, where it's a couple communities that have established trade with each other, and they each kind of specialize in something and trade between them, so that they can then sufficiently take care of each other as a whole. And those are the people you usually only ever deal with. Very few people go outside of that. But most people are like, okay, well, everyone knows that the Thorns and stuff, they have their big cathedral in Hertai, which is the biggest city that there is here. Everyone knows that there's a big city. It's like the quote unquote capital because there's no real government. So everyone knows about it. Almost no one's been there. They just know it exists, and that's where most of the Thorns come from. And they know the general layout of the lands and stuff. And like orcs come from Orthar, and like cat people come from Tunas, but that's it. They don't really know past that. There's obviously the exception of people who decide that they want to learn more, and you can. But there's not much value to learning more because you're like, well, who cares if I know what's going on the continent on the other side of the planet? I need to figure out what we're eating for dinner.
Right. I need to add more jars of pickles in my cellar. It's a delicacy. Pickled beets. So how is knowledge treated?
It really, really depends. And it depends on the community. Like the bigger your community is, usually the safer you are. It's like an aquarium. The bigger it is, the more self-sustained it is. So you usually have a little more room to be a little more like complacent and focus on less important things to survival. But there are important things of knowledge, like if you know what you can eat and what you can't eat, and like survival knowledge is highly valued without a doubt.
Sure.
But like knowledge about the world and geography and stuff like that, not so much. And everyone learns like the basic legends of Varun and Talmor, but knowing about the old gods, well, why would you know that? There's no point in you knowing that.
Right.
And so yeah, like a lot of these towns are very focused on survival, and anything else is just extra twist, and they're just like, well, why?
Yeah. What if it doesn't keep me from dying of starvation?
Yeah.
What's the
and most
point?
people grow up in these towns that decide that they want to, pursue knowledge in another way. They're pretty much their only like standard outlet is to then go become a cleric or a thorn.
Right.
There's no real other thing for them to do because it's like they don't know anything past that. Like the Mages Council's coming around trying to like recruit people and stuff, but like thorns of the clerics are trying to keep them away as much as possible. Like, fuck off. These are our people.
Yeah.
Telling them, like, don't go near those guys. They don't know what they're talking about.
Right, right. They're like those people who stand on campus and try to hand you Bibles. It's like, no, go away!
But it's like a physics book.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like an algebra book. They're like, but no.
Yeah, so they generally not accepted.
Okay, I was curious because I am going through a kind of a similar process while I'm building a sci-fi game, and it's just like you start. It looks like and feels like it's so much stuff. Like, oh my god, I have to think about these things. But to me, or at least for me, I should say, once I started with a couple of pieces, other things started just avalanching.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like we knew what a couple of our base factions were, and from there we were able to kind of establish a lot of other stuff. If you go down to the image that says the Vowed, that's near the bottom.
Let me go back. And yes.
So this is a screenshot of my OneNote for the faction the Vowed. It's just got a picture in it though, so.
Okay, perfect. Yes, I just had to wait for it to not be a complete butthead with me. That was my computer, not your thing. It was my thing. There we go. There we go. There we go. Okay.
So this is an example of what my notes look like, and this is one of the faction pages, and this is for the Vowed. The Vowed are rangers. They're always wandering out and about in the world. They're the neutral good guys across everyone. You see a Vowed, you know that if you need help, they'll help you. Mm-hmm. They don't speak to people at all. They communicate with each other when they're in presence of the people with animal sounds, and different animal sounds. Like one can communicate like a bat, and the other one can communicate like a bear, and they'll understand each other. Because they all have like their totem animal that they from their own little clan thing, and they're just really exceptional getting around. They're the only ones that will go around all year through the world. And most of them have territories that they wander through, and they just kind of cycle through, and they help people when they find them. They find someone out in the middle of the wilderness he helps, they will just like bring them to the nearest community. Doesn't matter if the person wanted to go there or not. They're like, this is where you go, you're safe.
Right.
And you can hire them to guide you, and they'll do that. They can also we also call them FedEx because they're the one way of getting mail anywhere at the fast way. Like, if you give it to a Vowed, if you can afford it, they'll get it there.
They'll get it there, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and they also sell these fireworks that towns can use to signal for if they need a Vowed to come.
Okay.
So sends up a flare of colors, and so the nearest Vowed will show up and be like, hey, what's up?
Yeah, cavalry style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They use a series of like a very simple version of sign language to communicate with the average folk, which I've also been ridiculously developing. When I was joking to you the sign language thing, no, I wasn't. I'm serious.
God, yeah. I had that feeling. I was like, I can't tell if she's punking me or like.
No, it's real. Well, it was like, okay, well, I've got to figure out how to communicate, and I'm like, okay, well, they do this sign language, cool. But what words do they have? Because like, for the average person to understand, it's like you're not going to learn an entirely new language just in case you run across somebody. Like there's got to be like core words the average person can pick up or like at least understand some of them. So yeah, so I had to build that out so I could build out like the words and stuff that they could get. Like one of the players in the group has he's a shard hunter, which is a group of people that go out, look for shards and destroy them to try and like, you know, the Ghostbusters of shards. It's like when there's a shard in an area, they go out and like it's fucking with people, they'll go out and take care of it. So he has been around a bunch, so he knows the sign language a lot better. So he'll be able to translate better what they're saying, but you're still going to get like words that are like chunked out instead of just like a full sentence. It's like a bridge is just over water or something like that.
Oh, that's very cool. This is really fun. I also like how you you're giving me ideas on how to set up my notes better, so I'm mentally keeping track of this because I tend to word vomit and then organize.
Oh yeah. And this usually starts out as a wall of text. Yeah. Oh yeah. I went in afterwards and did the formatting, but yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise, if I stop and think too much about the formatting, then I get caught up in the formatting, and then I forget what I was word vomiting, and it was probably a really good idea when I stopped mid-thought, and then I get upset at myself.
Yeah, I usually wait till I have a fair amount of content because then I have an idea of what the structure needs to look like. Okay,
Yeah.
like I've got sections on this, some sections on this. I guess this should be sections themselves. And yeah, no, doing it from the beginning, you're just gonna pull your hair
You're
out.
gonna lose your mind. Yeah, that's it. And this is also a very good I feel like this screenshot especially is a very good recommendation for OneNote. I'm
Yeah,
shocked that more DMs don't use it because it is a lifesaver.
yeah. I started using it when I've been using it now probably for about 10 years for writing
Mm-hmm.
because I've got all these novel ideas and all these massive worlds in my head, and it was the easiest way for me to organize it. And also, the freaking phone app is amazing. I can
Yeah.
access it whenever I need. If I have an idea, I can just open it up and put it in and not have to worry
Mm-hmm.
about it, which is so convenient. Especially since like I write a lot on the go. Some of the ideas happen to me when I'm on the go, and I just need somewhere to record it that I'm not going to lose in some scrap piece of paper or something.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. That's or like if I'm in bed, I have done
Yeah,
this so many times, and all of a sudden I'm like, and I have to go and grab my tablet real fast and open that up and then plug it in. It doesn't matter what it looks like, just as long as I get it
yeah,
out
get something. Yeah,
and
put it down.
yeah, put it down. I know other people do the like physical note thing, but it just
I never remember to bring my books with me.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
That's
it's always like it's in some book in the living room. I'm like, okay, but I'm here right now.
right. I need the thing. I need the thing. Yeah, OneNote is
It's so good.
fantastic. I keep everything for all of my games in that. Well, and then
Yeah.
plus two, like, and I know people use like Google Drive and stuff. I just like OneNote is just so handy. It's just
Well,
so
yeah, it's like
handy.
having to open a bunch of individual documents. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I think this is the one. No, this is not the one. Oh, no, no. It's like put it in a OneNote. It's a virtual. For those who don't know what it is, it's a digital notebook. You have tabs along the top.
Mm-hmm.
You have multiple chapters or sections in it. Like it's
Oh,
so much more convenient than just like a Word document.
yeah. I use it a lot too when I need to share bits of information with the players, but I don't want to just
Mhm.
read it out loud. I'll just grab it. I'll screenshot that. And honestly, what it'll do, like for Discord, which is my favorite part, is if you
Is the
copy
image?
and paste, is the image, and it'll just
Yeah.
snap it in there. And I'm like,
Yes. It's so good. Yeah, the players. This is a screenshot from the player like OneNote, so they
yeah,
all have access to this, and it's like I've got different sections for like creatures. I've got ones for peoples, factions. There's a lot of them that I'm not remembering right now. NPCs,
yeah,
the world. Like I've got something for everything. So like everything they learn ends up in here, so they can pull it up if they don't remember. And they've also got tabs for them to record their information as well.
mm-hmm.
And I've got my own personal OneNote that I use for things that they haven't learned yet, or it's kind of secret.
Right,
But
right,
they have access to everything as well, so that way it helps make it easier for them to know what's going on. They're like, what was that thing again? They can just look it up.
yeah,
So I keep excessive notes. I after every session I note everything out. Like here's exactly what happened. Here are the people you interacted with. You go onto the NPC's page, you can see your interactions with them are written at the bottom. So just that kind of stuff.
I think that's so smart, and it breaks away from that. I really don't believe in player punishment. Like
Mhm.
names are weird, spellings are weird. You have language barriers just between players. At least I run into that a lot. They know English as a second or third or fifth language in
Yeah.
many cases. I'm like, I'm not gonna because someone decided to spell a name weird. English is weird. Like they're not gonna make you anyone. But having that, this is such a smart idea. See, that's the other one of the other reasons I love doing these and talking to DMs and GMs and writers and artists. I'm like, you're giving me so many ideas right now. I take away something from all of these conversations, and
Yeah, it's so handy. So if you have to try to remember
so
everything you told the
cool
players, like, oh, what was that thing I told you? Don't you
that I
remember?
made up
You
off a
know, here it
fly.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Yeah, that then shoot you in the foot later.
Yeah, you're like, yeah,
That
right.
thing, that thing that I totally just, freaking made up. And I know you don't think I improv anything and it's all planned out, but
It does take a bit more upfront work, but
yeah,
doing it saves you so much work over the long run because everything's there.
this is so cool. I freaking love this. Oh my gosh. I've been dicking around with World Anvil.
Oh yeah, this was originally on World Envil.
Yeah, in kind of the same regard, just giving because you have this player compendium, And I always think of it as like, what do I want to put in my player's hitchhiker's guide? Like, what
Yeah.
is the thing? What are those pieces, those travel guides? What are those things that everybody in the world would know?
Common knowledge, yeah.
Common knowledge. And one of the things that I hate that I see done a lot, and this is just personal preference, is they'll just give you like, here's what people in this town know, and it's a bulleted list. I'm like, but that's not, it is useful, but at the same time it does create a lot of work on the GM, because then, like, if you're me and you don't like to have the books open, or you also don't have a lot of space, like, I don't have a lot of space for that when I'm running games, I then have to move those notes over. Like, give me an image. If you give me an image, if you give me a you know, something color coded like this, it's going to be much easier to work with.
Absolutely. Yeah, everything I do is in OneNote and Excel. Like my encounters and stuff, where I build out encounter sheets in Excel, and I copy all the details of the monsters and stuff that I'm using. Like, I don't want to be pulling out, like you said, pulling out books in the middle of the game. No, fuck that shit. I don't have time for that shit.
I don't have time for this. The book is here when I need it, but not right now. It's not right now.
Like, when I'm playing, I would rather the books never come out. Like, because really the reality is we don't actually need the books.
Yeah.
You know, we can just work through it and make it happen. We don't have to stop for 10, 15 minutes to do a rule check. Like, we're doing 13th age. The rules are a lot cleaner and simpler versus D&D, so that's a plus and all in its own. But in general, it's just like, it's just, no, just get what you need in front of you so that you're only looking at that. Because like, even like when we're playing in person with other games and stuff, like someone needs to do a rule check, they open up their phone and then they get distracted and stuff. Just like, just focus on the game, just focus on what's in front of you, instead of like, oh, I need to find the book, or I need to do this.
Yep.
Just get into the world and just let it be.
Just let it be. Yeah, that's one of my all-time favorite pieces of advice, is just like, just make the decision and move forward, and then you can check it later. Like, if this is something that is going to have further ramifications, you can check it, or you can all just agree, like, if this is just a one-off thing, we can house rule it, we can do whatever. And a lot of not all of them, I've seen some really, really nicely laid out RPG manuals, and then some of them are a hot fucking mess. And you're like,
I honestly hate how the player's handbook for 5e is laid out.
It's awful.
It infuriates me to no end. Me, Tyler, and Nathan were hanging out one night. We also all had a couple of drinks, and we had this whole debate about D&D, and like, no, this book is the worst fucking laid out shit ever. And like, I've got like fourth edition and 3.5, and I pull the books. I'm like, look at fourth edition. Look at these nice bullet lists. Look how it's giving you page numbers. And I was like, but I get it. I read the book front to back. I'm like, people don't have time for that shit. Yeah. I'm like, look at this great layout. I'm like, and then I pull up 13th age. I'm like, look how easy this layout is to follow. It's like, oh, it's because these are written by the same people. 5e, go fuck yourself. I hate that book. I hate it so much.
That's your takeaway from this.
Fuck you, 5e.
The player's handbook in particular.
Oh, it's the worst. Dude, I hate that book. Every time I was gonna make a character or anything, I'm like, I'm just gonna fucking burn this thing. I don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah, it's just not laid out well. And you know, a lot of homebrewers and third party people have really done a nice job resetting. I'm like, hire them. Please hire them.
Oh,
give them
here comes
money.
Cat.
Oh, there's Cat. Oh, I love you, Mom. Look at the baby.
He's like, feed me, please.
Yeah, please, I'm dying. Please give me food. Look at him. He's so regal.
Okay. Just lay down. Good boy.
Oh, good boy. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited about this. So what rule system are you all using?
It's 13th age.
Okay.
With a lot of custom rules in it. I've got a whole bunch of stuff I've hijacked from other things. Like we use something called the bond system. It's very similar to bond systems that's run in Dungeon World. Basically, bonds, you establish a bond with another player usually. And it's with the players, and you're like, okay, this is what my character thinks of this character. Like, one of our players is like, she's got a crush on this guy, but I don't think he feels the same way about me, or this person should not be trusted to make food. And so you have established these like opinions about each other.
Yeah.
And it gives them something to reference to and also to think about and resolve. And with that, like that and among a couple other things, it's giving them these bonus points that basically rewards them for role playing, which they can then exchange for dice when they need them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like, if they enact this bond, this session, then they could like, okay, mark it down. They get an extra point for it. They've also got principles and flaws for the same idea. Like, one guy's flaws is don't touch my shit. So if someone touches his stuff and he acts on it, he gets a point for it.
Okay.
You're improving.
Look at yes. Oh my gosh. What a baby. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So yeah, so like I've kind of injected that stuff in there. Okay, get out of the screen. Just because I want to reward that. That's something I really love from Dungeon World that I haven't had a chance to play with it yet. So it's just like try encourage role playing, like reward them for that. Especially since like the group that we're playing with, they're a lot more role players and stuff. They're not murder hobos. So reward people for doing things like that.
Yeah.
Big fan of it. And it also gives them, I also give them relationship points with NPCs and stuff.
Yes.
So things like it's a +10, -10 system, and that they can use that to try and sway people. Like, oh, I've got a really good relationship with so and so, I'm going to try and get them to help me with this, and then it rewards them for having those interactions.
Yep. I don't know if you've ever played them, but the Divinity Original Sin game, the video games do that, to where if you have certain interactions with certain NPCs, their opinion of you goes up and down to the point where, especially like if it's a merchant and you try to barter too much with them and they're like, oh, you're a miser, and then they jack up their prices for you. Yes. There are consequences to my actions.
Right. Sorry. When it's like, if you've done a lot of work for helping somebody, well, they should treat you differently. Yeah, and if you decide to totally be a dick to this person, well, you're gonna have to deal with that.
Yeah, I love that. Some of the Powered by the Apocalypse games will, like Monster of the Week, we all built our relationship, like how we all knew each other in a certain way, and the depth of those relationships before the game even officially started was already established. It was just a really fun way to think about the characters. So I love that you're doing that, because it brings these ties in together that they don't all have to be positive.
Yeah, exactly. And it gives us something to grow on and think about, like, consciously think about these things. A lot of times when players play, they're just kind of playing with, I'm Cayla playing with Halli, instead of like thinking about how these relationships develop in character. So there's a difference to like the actual canon and fiction versus those interactions outside of character. So it encourages them to do that, and with NPCs, instead of like, oh, I tell him to do this, or oh, I give him this. What do you say to him?
Right. Show me how this
how
this works. Right. Instead of it just magically happening. It's like, we don't always all get along with each other. Like, there's no reason that little piece of universal truth can't be applied here as well.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So there's one thing I have to definitely bring up with you, or my players will be very upset with you or with me. Go to the fourth image, 04 chickens.
Huh? Okay. There are chickens. Y'all got to see this. Holy butt cracks. Okay, hold on. Chickens. Okay, there's chickens. Okay.
So these are rock chickens. These were like the first like creature that I developed for this world. And the idea was like, I was trying to think, okay, during the famine, what can they eat? They can't, nothing reproduce, can't keep making stuff. And I had this idea, well, what if there was a chicken that was in a rock that would just sit in this rock until you like threw it in a fire and it hatch and it would become a chicken. I was like, well, that's cool. It's a way for them to preserve, like, because you can't just keep a regular egg and just hatch it whenever you want it. It'll go bad. Right. These guys that in the rock forever. So I was like, this is great. This is a way for them to have food. And this whole idea came up, and it just been like snowballed into this whole thing now. You see I've got different varieties of chicken there. For different reasons. Now, rock chickens originally come from the fire plate.
Okay.
They are super dumb. They are so dumb. They'll try and eat everything. And they live for a year.
Oh, okay.
So rock chickens, once they hatch, they will rapidly mature. Like within a week, they're pretty much like a full-grown chicken,
Oh my.
and they will just rapidly reproduce whenever it's feast time and make ton of eggs. And then like when they die, they kind of turn into this little like ember, like their feathers kind of molt into like stone, and it's just like this little ember thing. And there's this whole circle of life thing where if an egg is put there, the egg will hatch.
Oh, what?
So yeah, so yeah, and rock chickens. So they so this they've come from the fire plane, and as being one of these steady food sources that they can use during the famine, they're like everyone's kind of got rock chickens, and a lot of regions have got into breeding them into very specific ways and like show rock chickens and stuff. Like there's the basic rock chicken, so like the ones you see there, there's the Korean ones. We're in Korean,
Yeah.
but there are people who breed chickens with crystals.
Oh.
Now a rock chicken by itself tastes like hot chicken. It is spicy. But we've got different kind of chickens according to how they breed them. Some taste like Cool Ranch, some taste like Sriracha, others taste like Frank's. If you soft boil a rock chicken egg, it's like a tom yum soup.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So these are our mascot, and Sunk is overrun with them. They bred so much that now they're just everywhere, and they're just wandering around all the time. You have to like watch out, or you'll run into them as they're just running around. And they just breed like crazy. And since they mature so fast, they're like rabbits.
Oh my gosh.
And they're delicious, and they turn into rocks. We have this story like what happened was when they first came to Sunk to like establish, they had a wagon full of rock chicken eggs, and then a fire accidentally happened, and they all hatched.
Oh shit.
So they got overrun with rock chickens, which is why there's so many of them. Like there is a little like rock chicken pen area, but it's just like they just leave it open because there's too many of them, and they don't ever stay there anyways.
So what's the point? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I love this. Oh my god, the little fat one is adorable. Oh my god.
If you go to 07 the under, the map.
So excited about these friggin' birds.
The rock chickens are. So this is the map of the underground city in Sunk that they found, and they've moved into at this point. They've established like stores and stuff. Like when you come up to the town, there's like not much above ground.
Okay.
But there's a whole world underneath where they've actually established and actually have a town.
Oh wow.
I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see it, but there is a rock chicken pen there.
Yeah, let me see if let me just oh yeah, I do see that. I'm making it bigger for a moment so that everyone can kind of it's bottom right. That's cool. Sunken woes, stop it.
Yeah, you can thank Nathan for that one.
It's like, who's the smartass that can? Oh, never mind. Okay.
Of course.
Of course it was. It's not the mermaid's tit, but you know.
Yeah.
This is
yes. This is the town. Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh, how fun. Oh, these maps are fantastic.
Yeah, Dungeon Painter Studio. It's great. I'm a big fan.
Jeez, yeah, that is really cool. I'm gonna have to play around with that. I've definitely bookmarked it, but it's one of those things where you bookmark it and you go, I'll play that later. You're giving me
I do have a nice organized asset pack, so if you do decide you want to get into it, I can give you the asset packs. You don't have to find stuff.
I'll play with it first just to make sure I won't lose my patience. But that's really cool. Wow. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Chicken. Now your Discord tag makes sense.
Yeah, that came up for Gabe. When you're playing Quiet Year, there's a function called contempt. So like if a character and another character kind of don't get along with something, or they pissed off about the other person doing something, they can then have contempt. Like when you're playing the game in real life, there's like these little skull beads that you can put next to that character's name or whatever on your paper. Oh. What we did is we made a rock chicken, and the rock chicken was our contempt token, so we kept moving around.
Rock chicken. Yeah, that's pretty great. Oh my god. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited about this. This is very cool. This is very, very cool. So how long ago did this all kind of start? I'm very curious.
let me see. I think that my original concept started for it, I think around the end of 2018.
Oh
I
wow.
like the idea first came to me, and it's just like one of those things that I just time for me is a limited resource. So finding the time to work on it was one thing. And then like, but once I kind of got the ball rolling, it was just a matter of them us booking the session. Because if I am just left to world build, I will world build for eternity. So there's the point, I always get to the point like, okay, I just need to fucking book a session already.
Right.
So we didn't start playing until we started playing at the beginning of this year.
Okay.
Yeah, but the development's been going on for a long time.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I think the first session zero happened last summer.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've just been talking about it and working on stuff in between them, and just we didn't actually start playing until the start of this year.
Okay. Very
Yeah.
cool. We've got just a couple of minutes left. Because I would let you talk forever, but I try to keep my promises that it's 90 minutes. So real quickly though, this is not the only thing that you do. You also have webcomics and you do art,
Yes.
and yes, so let's go down that list too.
All right, we'll do a little bit of everything. I do run a
Yeah.
webcomic called Blackburn. You can find it at blackburncomic.com. It is, a coming of age comic series about in a world basically that's a modern world that's fantasy. So there's elves and stuff. The main characters are like an ensign, an elf, a half demon, and it's just like teenage Rose, what like you kind of expect, but with a magical backdrop.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been doing that for 2 years now. We're kind of on a hiatus right now with everything that's been going on with BLM, and I've been trying to figure out a way to approach that because I want to cover it and talk about it. It's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of doing it in the right way is really difficult.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a lot of research on that.
Yeah.
I have essays on that stuff now, but not what I want to do with the comic yet. But yeah, the comic is just following these girls in their lives and they how they are growing up and dealing with their teenage problems, but also like problems of this world that is like starting to grow all this tension and contempt with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It's very cool. It's very cool. It's very good. I haven't been able to read it all, but I've definitely gone back and started it here a few months ago, and I was like, "Yeah, I love webcomics. They're just so fun, and it is amazing to me that you produce that much. It's just like yeah. When you say time is a limited resource, I'm like, how
oh
do you
yeah,
do the things?
normally my time is like normally before a pandemic I was like Monday nights I usually do my Patreon stuff. Tuesday nights I do web comic. Wednesday night I do editing for the shows. Thursday night I do web comics. Fridays I usually do commissions. Saturdays I do commissions. Sunday web comic. So like I once marked out my schedule and it was stupid. It's like 4 hours here on a Saturday.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, and of course then when we're playing on Chef's Night, well then my Thursday nights both web comics and Chef's Night.
And that,
So
yep.
yeah.
And the Nightbot has all the links there. So it's got Cayla's Patreon, it's got the Blackburn comic link, it's got her Twitter, and then the DMTK Twitter, so that you can find all of those fun things. The Patreon is well worth it. I am a member, and it is well worth it. So that was me. Now you know. See?
First, now I just click because I learned your secret name. So.
My secret name. It's a thing. Not talking about that. So Nightbot's got all the links. Or you can always we RT a lot on Terrible Parties Twitter, so in case you can't ever find anyone, you can search for Cayla, or you can come over to our Twitter and we RT a bunch of stuff, so that's always fun as well. Thank you for sharing all of everything that you did with Feast and Famine. That's just like really fucking cool.
Yeah, when you were like, what do Worldbuilders yet? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, she wasn't joking.
Except for days.
Yeah.
But,
oh no, we might. I think we'll do a two-parter at some point, because it's like I want to know something. I have so many questions now.
well, very happy to be here. It was lots of fun.
Um, Yeah, was there anything else that you wanted to bring up, or is there a kitten?
There's a kitten.
Baby! Oh, that is the newest member of their family. Look at the baby.
This is Freya.
Oh my goodness. So tiny. So teensy.
So small.
I can't I can hear her purring. Oh my gosh.
So, cats and content. There you
Cats
go.
and contents. Perfect. This is the best dream ever. I love it. Aw. Well, thank you so much, Cayla. This was a lot of fun. I am now very excited to go back in and reorganize my OneNote as well, because it's like my wall of shame. It's
Let me know if you need any tips.
I might have to. Don't open that door too far.
I'll send you screenshots. You gotta put it together.
Fair enough.
Like
Fair.
Akira, okay?
Fair. Thank you, everyone. So appreciate it. We'll have some more words. World Builder Studio. I'm clearly tired. Over September as well. I do have slots open for the remainder of the year. So if you write stories or make art or have anything, you run games or you're a player in a game and you want to share something that you're wanting to do, consider coming on the show. It's very laid back, as you can see. And I'm very excited to meet new people and have folks on. So thank you, Cayla, again. I'm just watching you pet the cat. She's so cute. All right, bye, everyone.